For millions of years, dinosaurs ruled the Earth, and among them were giants so enormous that they pushed the limits of what scientists once thought was possible for life on land. Their bodies stretched longer than many buildings, their necks reached high above ancient forests, and their weight rivaled that of several modern animals combined. Yet uncovering the true champions of size is not as simple as measuring a single fossil. Many of these prehistoric giants are known from incomplete remains, while new discoveries continue to reshape the rankings. From colossal plant eaters that wandered vast landscapes to record-breaking species known from only a few bones. Argentinosaurus was a giant long-necked dinosaur that lived during the late Cretaceous period in what is now South America, specifically in the region that is modern-day Argentina. It belongs to a group of dinosaurs known as sauropods, which are famous for their very long necks, long tails, and massive bodies supported by 4 thick, pillar-like legs. More precisely, Argentinosaurus is part of a subgroup called Titanosauria, which includes some of the largest land animals ever known to exist on Earth. Even though the fossil remains of Argentinosaurus are not complete, the available evidence shows that it was one of the heaviest and longest land animals ever discovered. Scientists estimate that Argentinosaurus may have reached a length of about 30 to 35 meters, which is about 98 to 115 feet. Its weight is also estimated to have been extremely large, possibly around 65 to 80 tons, which is about 72 to 88 short tons. These numbers are not exact because the skeleton is incomplete, but they give a general idea of its enormous size. To understand how large this is, it would have been longer than several buses placed end to end and heavier than many modern military tanks combined. Even among giant dinosaurs, Argentinosaurus stands out as one of the largest ever found. The discovery of Argentinosaurus began in the year 1987, when a farmer named Guillermo Heredia was working on his land called Las Overas. This farm was located about 8 kilometers, or roughly 5 miles, east of the town of Plaza Huincul in Neuquén province, Argentina. While working on the land, Heredia noticed a large object in the ground. At first he believed it was just a piece of petrified wood, which is a common type of fossilized plant material found in many parts of the world. Because of this belief, he did not immediately recognize its scientific importance. However, instead of ignoring it, he informed the local museum, the Museo Carmen Funes, which was responsible for fossil discoveries in the region. When museum staff arrived at the site, they carefully examined the object and realized that it was not wood at all but a fossilized bone from a very large dinosaur. This discovery was extremely important because bones of such size were rare and could belong to a previously unknown species. The museum team carefully excavated the bone and transported it back to their facilities, where it was placed in the exhibition room for study and preservation. This first bone would later become part of the scientific foundation for identifying Argentinosaurus. A more detailed excavation of the site took place in the year 1989. This excavation was led by the well-known Argentine paleontologist José Fernando Bonaparte, who worked with a team of researchers from the Museo Argentino de Ciencias Naturales. Bonaparte is considered one of the most important figures in South American dinosaur research, and his involvement helped bring significant scientific attention to the discovery. During this excavation, several additional bones were recovered from the same individual dinosaur. These included multiple vertebrae from the back, as well as parts of the sacrum, which is the section of fused vertebrae located between the back and tail regions of the spine. The sacrum is a very important part of a dinosaur's skeleton because it helps support the weight of the body and connects the spine to the hips. In Argentinosaurus, the sacrum was made up of several fused vertebrae, specifically the first through fifth sacral vertebrae, along with associated sacral ribs. These bones were found in a partially connected state, helping scientists confirm that they belonged to a single large individual. In addition to these spinal elements, a portion of a rib from the side of the body was also discovered. All of these fossils were carefully collected and added to the collection of the Museo Carmen Funes, where they continue to be studied. Extracting the fossils from the surrounding rock was extremely difficult because the bones were embedded in very hard stone. To remove them safely without causing damage, scientists used pneumatic hammers, which are tools that use compressed air to carefully chip away rock. This process required a great deal of patience and precision, because even small mistakes could destroy valuable fossil evidence. Despite the difficulty, the team successfully recovered a significant portion of the skeleton. The initial bone discovered in 1987 was first thought to be a fibula, which is the thinner bone in the lower leg. However, later studies suggested that it might instead be a different type of limb bone. In 2004, researchers re-examined the evidence and confirmed that the bone was indeed a fibula. This kind of reclassification is common in paleontology, where new techniques and comparisons with other fossils can change earlier interpretations. In the year 1993, José Bonaparte and another Argentine paleontologist named Rodolfo Coria formally described and named the dinosaur species Argentinosaurus huinculensis. The name Argentinosaurus means Argentine lizard, while the species name huinculensis refers to Plaza Huincul, the town near where the fossils were discovered. This naming officially placed the dinosaur in scientific records and allowed researchers around the world to study and discuss it under a recognized classification. Later research also included additional fossil material from the same region. In 1996, Bonaparte referred a complete femur, or thigh bone, to Argentinosaurus. This bone was placed on display at the Museo Carmen Funes. However, this femur had been heavily deformed by pressure during fossilization, which means it was crushed and changed from its original shape over millions of years. Because of this deformation, it is difficult to measure its exact original dimensions. Another partial femur was later described in 2004 and is currently housed in the La Plata Museum under a specific catalogue number. This bone is less deformed but incomplete, preserving only the central shaft and missing both the upper and lower ends. Scientists have debated whether these femora truly belong to Argentinosaurus, since the fossil record is incomplete and there is no fully articulated skeleton to confirm their identity with certainty. As of recent studies, the assignment of these bones to Argentinosaurus remains uncertain. Because the fossil remains are fragmentary, reconstructing the full appearance of Argentinosaurus is very challenging. Scientists must rely on comparisons with other, more complete titanosaurs to estimate its body structure. By studying related species, researchers can scale up known skeletal proportions to match the size of Argentinosaurus. This method allows them to create reasonable models of what the dinosaur might have looked like, even without a complete skeleton. Different scientific studies have produced a range of size estimates. Some reconstructions suggest that Argentinosaurus was about 30 meters long, while others propose lengths closer to 35 meters or even more depending on the method used. In some models, particularly those using digital skeletal reconstruction techniques, estimates have reached nearly 40 meters in length. Shoulder height estimates suggest that it could stand over 7 meters tall at the hips, making it extremely tall even among giant dinosaurs. Body mass estimates also vary widely due to the uncertainty in skeletal reconstruction. Some early estimates suggested a mass of around 80 to 100 tons. Later studies provided more refined ranges, often suggesting between 60 and 90 tons depending on the method used. Some calculations based on bone measurements, especially the circumference of the limb bones, have produced estimates around 70 to 90 tons. Other biomechanical models have suggested slightly different values depending on assumptions about body density, muscle mass, and posture. In addition to size estimates, scientists have also studied how Argentinosaurus might have moved. Computer models suggest that it was not a fast-moving animal. Instead, it likely moved at a slow walking pace, with estimated speeds of around 7 kilometers per hour or about 5 miles per hour. Its movement pattern may have involved a coordinated walking style where limbs on the same side of the body moved in a similar rhythm. This type of movement would have been efficient for supporting its massive weight over long distances. The fossils of Argentinosaurus come from a geological formation known as the Huincul Formation. This rock layer was formed between about 97 million and 93.5 million years ago during the middle part of the late Cretaceous period. At that time, the environment in this region of South America was home to a wide variety of dinosaurs and other prehistoric animals. Among them was Mapusaurus, a large predatory dinosaur that may have shared the landscape with Argentinosaurus. The presence of both giant herbivores and large predators suggests that this ecosystem supported a complex and diverse range of life forms. Even though Argentinosaurus was clearly an enormous animal, scientists still do not agree on whether it was truly the largest titanosaur that ever lived. Other giant titanosaurs, such as Puertosaurus, Futalonctosaurus, Dreadnoughtus, Paralititon, Antarctosaurus giganteus, and Alamosaurus have all been suggested by some studies to be about the same size as Argentinosaurus. However, other research has argued that these dinosaurs were actually smaller in comparison. In addition to this debate, newer studies have also changed how Argentinosaurus compares with other giants. In the year 2017, Carbalido and colleagues suggested that Argentinosaurus might have been smaller than Patagotitan, because Patagotitan had a larger area formed by parts of its front backbones, including the neural spine, diapophyses, and parapophyses. But in the year 2019, Paul argued the opposite, suggesting that Patagotitan was actually smaller than Argentinosaurus, because Argentinosaurus had a much longer series of backbones. Even if Argentinosaurus turns out to be the largest titanosaur known, there are still other sauropods that may have been even bigger, although they are known from only very limited fossil remains. These include Maraapunisaurus and a giant mamenchisaurid dinosaur. There are also some diplodocid dinosaurs such as Supersaurus and Diplodocus that may have been longer than Argentinosaurus, even though they were likely much less heavy and less massive. When compared with living animals, even all known sauropods are still smaller in mass than the blue whale, which can weigh more than 150 tons, making it the heaviest animal known to have ever existed. Argentinosaurus likely had about 10 dorsal vertebrae like other titanosaurs. These backbones were extremely large, even by dinosaur standards. One of these dorsal vertebrae is estimated to have been about 159 centimeters tall and about 129 centimeters wide, while the central part of the vertebra could reach up to 57 centimeters across. In the year 2019, Paul estimated that the entire series of dorsal vertebrae stretched about 447 centimeters in length, and that the width of the pelvis was about 6/10 of the combined length of the dorsal and sacral backbone. The dorsal vertebrae were shaped in a way where the rear part of each bone was hollowed. The dorsal vertebrae were shaped in a way where the rear part of each bone was hollowed, a feature common in large sauropods. These vertebrae also had small side openings called pleurocoels, which were placed toward the front half of each bone. Inside, the bones were filled with many air spaces and chambers, making them lighter while still very strong. This air-filled bone structure is especially developed in the largest sauropods with the longest necks. In both the back and hip vertebrae, there were very large hollow spaces, measuring about 4 to 6 centimeters across. The ribs connected to the dorsal vertebrae were tube-like and cylindrical, which is different from many other titanosaurs. Early researchers noted that some of these ribs appeared hollow, but later scientists suggested this may have been caused by damage or erosion after the animal died, rather than a true biological feature. Like many titanosaurs, Argentinosaurus probably had 6 sacral vertebrae in the hip region, although the last one is not preserved. The central parts of the 2nd through 5th sacral vertebrae were much smaller than the first sacral vertebra. The ribs attached to these sacral bones curved downward, and the 2nd sacral rib was the largest among the preserved ones, although the first sacral rib is incomplete and its size is unknown. Because the fossil remains are incomplete, scientists still disagree about the exact order of the backbones in the spine. Different studies have placed the same vertebrae in different positions along the backbone. In the year 1993, one study placed certain vertebrae in one order, while in 2006 another study suggested a different arrangement, and in 2010 yet another arrangement was proposed. Some bones that were thought to belong to the middle of the back in earlier studies were later reinterpreted as belonging to either the front or rear parts of the backbone. Even connected vertebrae have been interpreted differently by different researchers, showing how uncertain the reconstruction still is. Another area of disagreement concerns special connecting joints between vertebrae called hyposphene hypantrum articulations. These structures sit below the main joints of the spine and help connect the bones more tightly. Because the fossils are fragmentary, it is difficult to clearly see these features in Argentinosaurus. In the original description in the year 1993, researchers suggested these joints were enlarged and similar to those seen in Epacthosaurus, possibly even having extra surfaces that extended downward. Later studies supported parts of this idea, with some scientists describing widened bony surfaces that connected one vertebra to the next, making the spine more rigid. In the year 1996, it was suggested that this rigidity could have helped support the massive body size of the animal. However, other researchers argued that these structures might not be true joints at all, but instead thickened ridges of bone that only looked like special articulations. In the year 2005, it was further suggested that these ridges may have developed from earlier joint structures, but still served a similar strengthening function. A nearly complete femur that was assigned to Argentinosaurus is about 2.5 meters long, with a narrow shaft measuring about 1.18 meters in circumference. Some studies estimated its original length to be about 2.56 meters, while later estimates in the year 2019 placed it at about 2.57 meters. For comparison, the femur of Antarctosaurus giganteus is about 2.35 meters long, while that of Patagotitan maiorum is about 2.38 meters long. Although the main fossil of Argentinosaurus does not include a femur, it does preserve a long and slender fibula that is about 1.55 meters in length. This bone was first thought to be a tibia, but later research showed that it matches the shape of a fibula more closely, since it lacks the features expected in a tibia, such as a strong muscle attachment crest. The relationships within the dinosaur group known as Titanosauria are still among the most confusing and least clearly understood within all known dinosaur groups. For a long time, most sauropod dinosaur fossils from the Cretaceous period were grouped into a single family called Titanosauridae, a name that has been in use since the year 1893. When Argentinosaurus was first described in 1993 by Bonaparte and Correa, the researchers pointed out that it had some features that made it different from typical members of Titanosauridae. One important feature was the presence of hyposphene hypantrum articulations, which are special connecting joints between the bones of the spine. Because these same structures were also found in other titanosaurs such as Andysaurus and Ipacthosaurus, Bonaparte and Correa suggested that these three dinosaurs should be placed in their own separate family called Andysauridae. At the same time, both Titanosauridae and Andysauridae were grouped together into a larger category called Titanosauria, which acted as a broader umbrella group. Later studies continued to change this picture. In 1997, Salgado and colleagues suggested that Argentinosaurus belonged to Titanosauridae and was part of a group that also included Opisthocoelicaudia and another unnamed titanosaur. In 2002, Davide Pisani and his team also placed Argentinosaurus within Titanosauria, and again found a close relationship with Opisthocoelicaudia, an unnamed species, and also Lyrhinosaurus. However, in 2003, Jeffrey Wilson and Paul Upchurch challenged this classification. They argued that both Titanosauridae and Andysauridae were not valid natural groups. They believed Titanosauridae was unreliable because it was based on the poorly defined genus Titanosaurus, and they also argued that Andysauridae was built on primitive features shared by many dinosaurs, rather than new, unique features that would clearly define a natural group. In 2004, Upchurch and colleagues introduced a new subgroup called Lithostrotia. This group included more highly evolved titanosaurs, while Argentinosaurus was placed outside it, meaning it was considered a more primitive or early branching member of Titanosauria. Many later studies supported this idea that Argentinosaurus was relatively basal within the titanosaur family tree. In 2007, Calvo and colleagues identified a group called Logoncosauria, which included Futalogoncosaurus and Mendozasaurus. Later research in 2017 placed Argentinosaurus within this Logoncosauria group and suggested it was closely related to Patagottitan. In 2018, González-Riga and colleagues also supported its position within Loncosauria and linked that group to Lithostrotia. However, not all studies agreed completely. Another study in 2018 by Hesham Salem and colleagues produced mixed results depending on the dataset used. One analysis placed Argentinosaurus as a basal titanosaur, while another suggested it was closely related to Ipacthosaurus rather than being part of Logoncosauria. In 2019, Julian Silva Jr. and colleagues again supported Logoncosauria, but they also suggested that Logoncosauria and another group called Rinconsauria might actually lie outside Titanosauria as previously defined. In the same year, González-Riga and colleagues also supported Logoncosauria, but they placed it together with Rinconsauria in a larger group within Titanosauria that they named Colossosauria. The enormous size of Argentinosaurus and other giant sauropods likely developed because of several connected biological advantages. Their extremely long necks allowed them to feed over wide areas without moving much, and because they did not chew their food, they could eat large amounts quickly and process it efficiently. Their fast growth rates and ability to reproduce with many small offspring also helped their populations recover quickly. Being so large also gave them benefits such as holding food for long periods inside their digestive systems, allowing more complete digestion and energy extraction, and offering better protection against predators. Like all sauropods, Argentinosaurus laid eggs. In 2016, Mark Hallett and Matthew Weedle suggested that its eggs were probably very small compared to the adult size, with a volume of about 1 liter. A newly hatched Argentinosaurus was estimated to be around 1 meter long and weigh no more than 5 kilograms. This means it increased its body size enormously during its lifetime, far more than most other land animals. It likely reached sexual maturity at about 8 to 10 years of age and full physical maturity at around 20 years, with an estimated lifespan of about 30 years. Its large size also influenced its relationships with predators. One possible predator was Mapusaurus, one of the largest known meat-eating dinosaurs. Fossils of Mapusaurus have been found in groups of at least 7 individuals, which has led some scientists to suggest that it may have hunted in packs. If this is true, such group hunting could have allowed it to attack extremely large prey, such as Argentinosaurus. In 2013, Sellers and colleagues used computer simulations to study how Argentinosaurus might have moved. They built a digital model based on a laser scan of a mounted skeleton displayed at the Museo Carmen Funes. Muscle structure was estimated by comparing it with living animals, and the final model had an estimated mass of about 83 tons. The simulation showed that Argentinosaurus likely walked in a coordinated pacing style, where limbs on the same side of the body moved together. The model suggested a maximum speed of just over 2 meters per second, which is about 7.2 kilometers per hour or 5 miles per hour. The researchers concluded that animals of this size were already close to physical limits for land movement, and that even larger land animals would require major changes in body structure or behavior to avoid stress on their joints. However, they also noted that their model was simplified, and that more accurate results would require better data from living animals and more complete fossils. A later study in 2025 estimated a walking speed of about 1.58 meters per second, or 5.7 kilometers per hour. Argentinosaurus was discovered in the Neuquén province of Argentina. The fossils were originally linked to the Huincul group of the Rio Lime Formation, which is now better known as part of the Huincul Formation within the Rio Lime subgroup of the larger Neuquén group. This region lies within the Neuquén Basin in Patagonia. The rocks of the Huincul Formation are mainly yellow and green sandstones that range from fine to medium grain, and some layers contain volcanic ash material. These sediments were formed during the late Cretaceous period, likely between the Middle Cenomanian and early Turonian stages, or possibly between the early Turonian and late Santonian stages. The environment at that time was shaped by braided river systems that spread sediments across wide floodplains. Fossilized pollen from the Huincul Formation shows that a wide range of plants existed in this region. These included hornworts, liverworts, ferns, club moss relatives, possible Noegarathiales, gymnosperms such as conifers and gonetophytes, and also flowering plants called angiosperms. Many types of vertebrate animals have also been found there, making it one of the richest fossil sites in Patagonia. These include fish such as lungfish and gar, turtles, lizards, early relatives of modern reptiles, crocodile relatives, and many dinosaurs. Alongside Argentinosaurus, other sauropods from this formation include another titanosaur called Choconsaurus and several rebbachisaurids such as Cathartosaura and Limasaurus, along with some species that have not yet been named. The meat-eating dinosaurs of this environment included large carcharodontosaurids such as Mapusaurus, abelisaurids like Scorpiovenata, Elochelesia, and Trulcosaurus, smaller noosaurids such as Huincalsaurus, and other theropods including Oviraptor, Aeoniraptor, and Gualicho. Some early plant-eating iguanodont dinosaurs were also present in this ecosystem. Patagotitan is one of the most famous giant dinosaurs known from science, and it belongs to a group of long-necked plant-eating dinosaurs called titanosaurs. These dinosaurs were part of the larger sauropod family, which also includes well-known giants like Argentinosaurus and Dreadnoughtus. Patagotitan lived during the late Cretaceous period, around 95 million years ago in what is now South America, specifically the region of Patagonia in Argentina. Its name is closely linked to this place since Patago refers to Patagonia and Titan refers to something extremely large and powerful in size. The first remains of Patagotitan were discovered in the early part of the second decade of the 21st century, around the year 2010. These fossils were found on a farm in the Chubut province of Argentina. The discovery happened when workers noticed large bones sticking out of the ground. Scientists from Argentina later studied the site and realized that the bones belonged to a previously unknown species of enormous dinosaur. Over time, more excavation work was carried out at the site, and additional bones were uncovered, making it one of the most complete giant sauropod finds ever made. The formal scientific description of Patagotitan happened several years after its discovery, in the year 2017. Before that, researchers had already recognized that the fossils belonged to something extraordinary in size, but careful study was needed to confirm its classification and compare it with other titanosaurs. The research team included Argentine paleontologists who worked together to analyze the bones in detail and determine its structure, size, and evolutionary relationships. Patagotitan is known from several large fossilized bones, including parts of the neck, back, tail, limbs, and ribs. Even though a complete skeleton has never been found, the preserved remains are enough to give a very strong understanding of its body structure. Like other titanosaurs, it had a very long neck that allowed it to reach vegetation high above the ground or spread across wide areas of plant growth. Its body was supported by 4 thick, column-like legs that carried its enormous weight. The tail was also long and helped balance its body while it moved. One of the most striking features of Patagotitan is its size. Scientists estimate that it could reach a length of around 37 to 38 meters, which is longer than several large buses placed end to end. Its weight is estimated to have been around 60 to 70 tons, although exact numbers are still debated, because estimating the weight of extinct animals is very complex and depends on how soft tissues are reconstructed around the bones. Even at the lower end of estimates, Patagotitan was clearly one of the largest land animals that has ever existed. The bones of Patagotitan are massive and very strong. Its femur, which is the thigh bone, is especially large and is one of the key pieces used to estimate its size. The femur alone measures more than 2 meters in length. This bone helped support its enormous body weight and shows how heavily built its legs were. The vertebrae or spinal bones are also large and hollowed in some areas to reduce weight while still maintaining strength. This is a common feature in large sauropods, allowing them to grow to huge sizes without becoming too heavy to support. Patagotitan belonged to a subgroup of titanosaurs known as logancosaurians. This group is known for producing some of the largest dinosaurs ever discovered. Members of this group tend to have extremely long necks, wide bodies, and very robust bones. They lived in what is now South America during the Cretaceous period, a time when the continents were arranged differently from today. The environment where Patagotitan lived was likely a floodplain with rivers, vegetation, and open areas where large herbivores could feed. The skull of Patagotitan has not been fully preserved, which is common in many sauropod discoveries. However, based on related species, scientists believe it had a relatively small head compared to its body size. Its teeth were simple and shaped like pencils or pegs, designed for stripping leaves from branches rather than chewing tough plant material. Like other sauropods, it likely swallowed plant material with minimal chewing and relied on its large digestive system to break down food. The neck of Patagotitan was extremely long and flexible, supported by a complex system of vertebrae and strong muscles. This neck allowed it to reach a wide range of vegetation without needing to move its entire body frequently. The structure of the neck bones suggests that it could move its head in sweeping motions, feeding across large areas of plant life. This feeding strategy helped it survive in environments where food was spread across large spaces. Its tail was also very important for balance. As the neck stretched forward, the tail extended backward, helping to keep the body stable. The tail may also have been used for communication or defense against predators, although its main function was likely balance. The tail vertebrae gradually became smaller toward the end, forming a long and flexible structure. The limbs of Patagotitan were built like strong pillars. The front legs and back legs were both thick and similar in structure, supporting its massive weight. The feet were wide and likely had padded structures to distribute pressure as it walked. Despite its enormous size, it was still capable of movement, although it probably moved slowly due to its weight. Each step would have required great force, and the bones show adaptations for carrying heavy loads over long periods. The discovery of multiple individuals at the same site suggests that Patagotitan may have lived in groups, or at least in loose herds. The fossils found include individuals of different sizes, which could represent different ages, from younger animals to fully grown adults. This gives scientists valuable information about how these dinosaurs may have grown over time. Growth in titanosaurs was likely very fast during early life stages, allowing them to reach large sizes relatively quickly, which may have helped reduce the risk of predation. Patagotitan lived in a world that was very different from today's Patagonia. During the late Cretaceous period, the climate in that region was warmer and supported rich plant life. There were forests, open plains, and river systems that provided food and water for large herbivores. Other dinosaurs also lived in the same environment, including smaller herbivores and carnivorous predators that may have occasionally hunted young or weak individuals. The study of Patagotitan has helped scientists better understand how extremely large dinosaurs evolved. Its discovery provided strong evidence that titanosaurs reached some of the greatest body sizes ever seen in land animals. It also helped improve understanding of how such large creatures could live, move, and survive in ancient ecosystems. The structure of its bones shows how evolution adapted its body for extreme size while still allowing it to function effectively. One important aspect of Patagotitan research is how scientists estimate the size and weight of extinct animals. Since only bones are preserved, researchers use mathematical models and comparisons with living animals to estimate body mass. Small differences in assumptions can lead to different results, which is why there is still some debate about the exact size of Patagotitan compared to other giant sauropods. Even so, it consistently ranks among the largest known dinosaurs. The fossils of Patagotitan are carefully stored and studied in museums in Argentina. Some of the bones have also been cast into replicas for display in museums around the world. These displays help the public understand just how large these animals were compared to modern animals and even modern buildings or vehicles. Seeing the bones in person shows the massive scale of these ancient creatures in a very direct way. Patagotitan also plays an important role in understanding the diversity of titanosaurs in South America. During the Cretaceous period, South America was a key region for the evolution of many giant dinosaurs. The isolation of the continent during certain periods allowed unique species to evolve, including some of the largest land animals ever known. Patagotitan is one of the most complete examples of this evolutionary path. The bones of Patagotitan also show signs of how it grew throughout its life. Growth rings in the bones, similar to tree rings, suggest that it may have grown rapidly in its early years and continued growing for a long time before reaching full size. This type of growth pattern is common in large dinosaurs and helped them reach massive sizes within their lifetimes. Even though much has been learned about Patagotitan, many details of its life remain uncertain. Scientists continue to study its fossils to learn more about its behavior, growth, and environment. Each new analysis adds more information about how this giant dinosaur lived in its ancient world, how it interacted with its environment, and how it fits into the broader history of sauropod evolution. Patagotitan remains one of the clearest examples of extreme body size in land animals, and its fossils continue to provide valuable information about the limits of growth in terrestrial life forms and the conditions that allowed such enormous creatures to exist in the prehistoric ecosystems of South America. Bruhathkyosaurus is one of the most mysterious and heavily debated dinosaurs ever mentioned. It is known from very limited fossil remains, and even those remains are no longer available for study today, which makes it one of the most uncertain dinosaurs in paleontology. Because of this, everything about its true size, shape, and even its exact identity is still under discussion among scientists. The story of Bruhathkyosaurus begins in southern India, where fossil bones were reported from rock layers that date back to the late Cretaceous period, a time when dinosaurs still ruled the land and Earth was very different from today. At that time, the region that is now India was not fully attached to Asia. It was still moving northward after breaking away from the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. The environment was warm with rivers, floodplains, and dense vegetation that could support enormous plant-eating dinosaurs. The fossils that led to the naming of Bruhathkyosaurus were discovered in the Tiruchirappalli region of Tamil Nadu. The remains were described in the late 1980s by Indian paleontologists who believed they had found something extraordinary. The material reportedly included parts of a massive thigh bone and other fragments that suggested a very large sauropod dinosaur, which is a group of long-necked, long-tailed plant-eating dinosaurs known for including the largest land animals ever to exist. The name Bruhathkyosaurus comes from ancient Sanskrit words that roughly translate to huge-bodied lizard, which reflects the impression the fossils made on the scientists who studied them. From the beginning, the dinosaur was considered potentially one of the largest land animals ever discovered, possibly even larger than well-known giants such as Argentinosaurus or Patagotitan. However, this claim is not confirmed because the fossils were incomplete, and later reports suggested that the original bones may have been lost or destroyed by natural forces such as flooding and erosion. The problem of missing fossils is one of the main reasons Bruhathkaiosaurus remains controversial. In paleontology, scientists depend heavily on physical evidence that can be measured, compared, and re-examined. When fossils are lost, it becomes extremely difficult to verify earlier interpretations. In the case of Bruhathkaiosaurus, later researchers were unable to locate the original bones, which raised doubts about how accurate the early size estimates really were. Early descriptions of the dinosaur suggested that it belonged to the group of titanosaurs, which were long-necked sauropods that lived during the late Cretaceous period. Titanosaurs were widespread across many continents, including South America, Africa, and Asia. They are known for their massive bodies, column-like legs, and relatively small heads compared to their huge size. If Bruhathkaiosaurus truly belonged to this group, it would have shared many features with other giant titanosaurs, such as a very long neck used for reaching vegetation high above the ground, and a long tail that helped balance its enormous body. Some of the early size estimates for Bruhathkaiosaurus suggested truly enormous dimensions. At one point, it was proposed that the animal could have reached lengths of more than 40 meters and possibly weighed over 100 tons. These numbers placed it among the largest land animals ever imagined. However, these estimates were based on very limited fossil material, mainly a fragmentary bone that may have been misinterpreted or even damaged before proper measurement. Because of this, modern scientists treat these numbers with caution. Over time, many paleontologists began to question whether Bruhathkaiosaurus was even a valid genus. A genus is a formal scientific category used to group closely related species. Some researchers suggested that the fossils might not belong to a sauropod at all, but could instead belong to a different type of large reptile, or even be misidentified fragments of another known dinosaur species. Others argued that it might be a titanosaur, but one that cannot be properly classified without more evidence. One of the main challenges in studying Bruhathkaiosaurus is the nature of fossil preservation in the region where it was found. The rock layers in southern India are known to be affected by weathering and erosion, which can damage fossils before they are fully excavated. In some cases, fossils exposed at the surface can break apart or dissolve over time due to rain, heat, and soil movement. This may explain why the original bones of Bruhathkaiosaurus were not preserved for long-term study. Despite the uncertainty, the idea of Bruhathkaiosaurus continues to attract attention because of what it could represent. If the early interpretations were correct, it would be one of the largest land animals ever discovered, possibly even larger than any other known dinosaur. This possibility has made it a frequent subject in discussions about the limits of body size in land animals and how large a creature can grow while still being supported by bones, muscles, and the environment. To understand why such a large size is even possible for sauropods, it helps to look at how these dinosaurs were built. Sauropods had lightweight but strong bones, often filled with air spaces that reduced their weight while maintaining strength. They also had efficient respiratory systems that allowed air to flow through their bodies in a way similar to modern birds. These features made it possible for some sauropods to grow to extreme sizes without collapsing under their own weight. If Bruhathkaiosaurus truly existed as described, it would have lived in a world filled with other large titanosaurs, crocodile-like reptiles, and early forms of birds. The rivers and forests of late Cretaceous India would have provided abundant plant life, supporting herbivores of enormous size. Such an environment would have been essential for sustaining a giant animal, since large herbivores require vast amounts of food each day. However, without solid fossil evidence, scientists cannot confirm how Bruhathkaiosaurus actually lived. or even exactly what it looked like. Some researchers now suggest that the original fossil material may have been too fragmentary to justify naming a new genus at all. In scientific practice, naming a new dinosaur usually requires clear, diagnostic features that distinguish it from all other known species. If those features are missing or unclear, the name becomes questionable. Because of this, Bruhathcaiosaurus is often described as a dubious dinosaur in scientific terms. This does not mean it was fake or imaginary, but rather that its classification is uncertain. In paleontology, a dubious name is one that cannot be confidently linked to enough evidence for proper identification. This is a common situation when dealing with very incomplete fossil discoveries, especially from regions where preservation conditions are poor. Even though it is uncertain, Bruhathcaiosaurus still plays an important role in discussions about prehistoric life. It highlights how much of Earth's ancient history is still incomplete and how many discoveries may have been lost before they could be fully studied. It also shows how scientific understanding can change over time as new evidence appears, or old evidence is re-evaluated. Some scientists continue to hope that new fossils from the same region might one day clarify the mystery. If more complete remains are found, they could confirm whether Bruhathcaiosaurus was truly one of the largest dinosaurs ever, or whether it was something more modest in size. Until that happens, it remains one of the great unknowns of dinosaur science. In modern paleontology, Bruhathcaiosaurus stands as a reminder of both the excitement and the limitations of fossil discovery. It represents the edge of what is known and what is still uncertain. While some dinosaurs are known from nearly complete skeletons, others like Bruhathcaiosaurus are known only from fragments and reports. This contrast shows how uneven the fossil record can be. The late Cretaceous world where it may have lived ended about 66 million years ago during a mass extinction event that eliminated most dinosaurs. If Bruhathcaiosaurus was real, it would have been part of that final chapter of dinosaur history. Its remains, whether lost or still hidden in the ground, belong to a time when giant reptiles still dominated the land. Dreadnoughtus is one of the most famous giant long-necked dinosaurs ever discovered, known from rocks in what is now Argentina. It lived during the late Cretaceous period, about 77 million years ago, at a time when many different kinds of large dinosaurs still roamed parts of South America. Even though only part of its skeleton has been found, the bones that were discovered are large enough to show that this animal was among the biggest land animals that ever lived. The name Dreadnoughtus means fears nothing, and it was chosen to reflect the idea that such a huge animal would have had very few natural threats once it reached full size. The fossils of Dreadnoughtus were discovered in southern Argentina in rocks that belong to the Cerro Fortaleza Formation. These rocks were formed from ancient floodplains, meaning the area where Dreadnoughtus lived once had rivers, wet land, and wide open environments where plants could grow in large amounts. The discovery was announced in the early 21st century after careful excavation and study of the bones that had been buried for millions of years. The most important specimen of Dreadnoughtus is known from a partial skeleton that includes many bones from different parts of the body. Scientists found bones from the neck, back, tail, limbs, and parts of the shoulder and hip. This is important because many giant dinosaurs are known only from very few bones, which makes it difficult to understand their true size and body shape. In the case of Dreadnoughtus, the number of preserved bones allowed researchers to make a more detailed estimate of its full body structure compared to many other giant dinosaurs. Based on scientific studies, Dreadnoughtus is estimated to have been about 26 to 30 meters long. This means it could stretch across a distance similar to several large buses placed end to end. Its weight has been estimated at around 40 to 50 tons or possibly more, depending on how its body tissues are reconstructed. These numbers are not exact because fossil animals cannot be weighed directly, but they are based on careful measurements of the bones and comparisons with better-known animals. The skeleton of Dreadnoughtus shows that it was a member of a group of dinosaurs called Titanosaurs, which were part of the larger sauropod family. Sauropods are the long-necked, long-tailed, plant-eating dinosaurs that include some of the largest animals ever to walk on land. Like other titanosaurs, Dreadnoughtus had a very long neck that helped it reach vegetation at different heights. Its neck was supported by strong vertebrae, which are the bones that form the spine. These vertebrae were large, but also had air-filled spaces inside them, which helped reduce weight while still keeping the bones strong enough to support the body. The tail of Dreadnoughtus was also very long and flexible. It helped balance the heavy front part of the body, especially the long neck. The tail may also have been used for movement and stability when walking. The vertebrae in the tail gradually became smaller toward the end, forming a long, tapering structure. The limbs of Dreadnoughtus were massive and column-like. The front legs and back legs were both strong, and they were designed to support a huge body weight. The bones of the legs, especially the femur, which is the thigh bone, were extremely thick and sturdy. The femur alone measures more than 2 meters in length in the largest known individuals. This shows how much weight the animal needed to support. The bones were structured in a way that allowed them to handle continuous pressure from standing and walking. One of the most interesting aspects of Dreadnoughtus is that its bones suggest it may not have been fully grown at the time it died. Scientists study growth patterns in dinosaur bones by looking at internal structures, similar to growth rings in trees. These patterns can show whether an animal was still growing or had reached full size. In the case of Dreadnoughtus, evidence suggests that it was still growing, meaning that fully mature individuals might have been even larger than the known specimen. The skull of Dreadnoughtus has not been found, which is common for many sauropod dinosaurs. Because of this, scientists cannot describe the exact shape of its head. However, based on related titanosaurs, it is believed that the head was relatively small compared to the body. It likely had peg-like teeth that were used for stripping leaves from plants rather than chewing them thoroughly. Sauropods did not chew food in the way many modern animals do. Instead, they swallowed plant material and relied on a large digestive system to break it down. Dreadnoughtus lived in an environment that was likely warm and seasonal. The region where its fossils were found shows evidence of ancient rivers and floodplain systems. These environments would have supported a wide range of plant life, including ferns, conifers, and other prehistoric vegetation. As a herbivore, Dreadnoughtus would have spent much of its time feeding on large amounts of plants to support its enormous body. Animals of such size need a constant intake of food, and it likely moved through large areas in search of vegetation. The way Dreadnoughtus moved is also based on scientific study of its bones and comparisons with other sauropods. It is believed to have walked on all 4 legs in a slow but steady manner. Its legs were positioned directly under its body, which helped support its weight efficiently. This posture is common among large land animals because it reduces stress on the joints and bones. Even though it was massive, its body structure shows that it was well adapted for supporting itself on land. The discovery of Dreadnoughtus is important because it helps scientists understand how extremely large land animals evolved. Titanosaurs, like Dreadnoughtus, represent one of the final stages in the evolution of giant sauropods. which began millions of years earlier during the Jurassic period. Over time, some of these animals evolved larger bodies, stronger limbs, and lighter internal bone structures to support their size. The fossil excavation of Dreadnoughtus also provided a rare opportunity because many of its bones were found in good condition and in a relatively connected arrangement. This means the skeleton was not completely scattered before burial, which sometimes happens when animal remains are moved by water or scavengers. The condition of the fossils helped scientists reconstruct the body more accurately. The study of Dreadnoughtus has also led to discussions about how big land animals can actually become. There are physical limits to size based on gravity, bone strength, and energy needs. Dreadnoughtus is close to those limits for land animals. Its bones show how evolution can push biological systems to their extreme boundaries while still maintaining functionality. Although Dreadnoughtus is already known as a giant, it is possible that even larger titanosaurs existed, but their fossils have not been found or are too incomplete to study properly. This makes Dreadnoughtus an important reference point in the study of dinosaur size and structure. The discovery and analysis of Dreadnoughtus also show how modern science studies ancient life. Paleontologists carefully remove fossils from rock layers, clean them, measure them, and compare them with other known species. They also use computer models to estimate body mass and movement. These methods help turn incomplete fossil remains into a clearer picture of ancient animals. Even though Dreadnoughtus lived tens of millions of years ago, its fossils continue to provide valuable information about prehistoric life on Earth. Each bone helps scientists understand more about how these giant animals lived, grew, and interacted with their environment. Futalonctosaurus was one of the largest long-necked dinosaurs that ever lived, and it belonged to a group of giant plant-eating dinosaurs known as titanosaurs. It lived a very long time ago during the late Cretaceous period, around 90 to 88 million years ago, when the land that is now South America was home to many huge dinosaurs moving through warm and green environments with rivers, forests, and wide floodplains. This dinosaur was first discovered in Argentina, in a place called the Neuquén province. The fossils were found in a rock area known as the Futaloncto site, which is where the name Futalonctosaurus comes from. The name can be understood as something like giant chief lizard, reflecting both its enormous size and the importance of the discovery site. The remains were studied and formally described in the year 2007 by a team of scientists led by Jorge Calvo and his colleagues. Their research showed that this dinosaur was one of the most complete giant titanosaurs ever found at the time, which made it very important for understanding how these enormous animals lived and evolved. Futalonctosaurus was a sauropod, which means it walked on 4 strong pillar-like legs, had a very long neck, a long tail, and a relatively small head compared to its body. Like other titanosaurs, it was a plant eater. It fed on vegetation such as leaves, ferns, and possibly tall conifer trees. Its long neck allowed it to reach plants that were high above the ground, as well as vegetation spread across large areas without needing to move its massive body too often. This feeding ability helped it survive in environments where food sources were spread out. In terms of size, Futalonctosaurus is considered one of the largest known dinosaurs. Estimates of its length suggest it reached around 26 to 30 meters long, which is about the length of several large buses placed end to end. Its weight is estimated to have been around 50 to 70 tons, although exact numbers are difficult to confirm because the fossil remains are incomplete, and scientists must use comparisons with related dinosaurs to make these calculations. Even at the lower end of these estimates, it was still an extremely massive animal, far larger than most other land animals that have ever existed. One of the most important parts of Futalonctosaurus that scientists studied was its neck. Like other sauropods, it had a very long neck made up of many large vertebrae. These neck bones were strong but also built in a way that helped reduce weight while still supporting such a long structure. The neck allowed the dinosaur to sweep across wide areas of vegetation without moving its body too much. This would have been useful in conserving energy, especially for an animal of such enormous size that needed a large amount of food every day. The vertebrae of Futalonctosaurus are among the largest neck bones ever discovered in a dinosaur. Some of them are extremely wide and heavy, showing how powerful the neck structure was. These bones also helped scientists understand how titanosaurs evolved different body shapes compared to earlier sauropods. Futalonctosaurus shows a stage in evolution where some titanosaurs developed very broad and strong neck and back structures, possibly to support increased body mass or changes in feeding habits. The body of Futalonctosaurus was supported by 4 thick, column-like legs. These legs were not spread out like those of a reptile today, but were positioned more directly under the body, which helped support its enormous weight. Each leg acted like a strong pillar, and the bones inside were dense and solid. The feet were also large and shaped to spread the weight across the ground, preventing the animal from sinking too deeply into soft soil or river banks. Its tail was also long and powerful, though not as well understood as the neck. The tail may have helped balance the weight of the neck and body. In some titanosaurs, tails were also used for communication or defense, though there is no clear evidence that Futalonctosaurus used its tail in this way. It likely functioned mainly as a stabilizing structure. The head of Futalonctosaurus was relatively small compared to its body, which is typical for sauropods. It had simple teeth that were shaped for stripping leaves from plants rather than chewing tough material. Because it did not chew its food thoroughly, it likely swallowed plant material in large pieces, which would then be broken down in its large digestive system. Like many large herbivorous dinosaurs, it probably relied on fermentation in its gut, where plant material was slowly broken down with the help of microorganisms. The environment where Futalonctosaurus lived was very different from many modern landscapes. During the late Cretaceous period, the region of Patagonia in South America had a warm climate with seasonal rainfall. Rivers and lakes were common, and vegetation grew in thick patches along water sources. This environment supported a wide variety of dinosaurs, including other large titanosaurs, smaller herbivorous dinosaurs, and many carnivorous predators. Futalonctosaurus would have shared its habitat with these animals, forming part of a complex ecosystem. Living in such an environment, Futalonctosaurus likely spent much of its time eating and moving slowly across large areas in search of food. Because of its massive size, it would have needed to consume a very large amount of plant material each day. Its size also provided protection from many predators. Very few carnivorous dinosaurs would have been capable of attacking a healthy adult Futalonctosaurus due to its sheer mass and strong limbs. However, young individuals would have been more vulnerable. It is likely that juvenile Futalonctosaurus faced threats from large predatory dinosaurs that lived in the same region. As a result, young dinosaurs may have stayed in groups or remained close to adults for protection. As they grew larger, their risk of predation would have decreased significantly. The discovery of Futalonctosaurus was very important for science because it included several well-preserved bones, especially parts of the neck, back, and pelvis. Many giant titanosaurs are known only from very fragmentary remains, making it difficult to understand their true size and shape. Futalonctosaurus provided more complete information, helping scientists compare it with other giant dinosaurs like Argentinosaurus and Patagotiton. These comparisons helped researchers build a clearer picture of how the largest land animals evolved and how they supported such extreme body sizes. One of the interesting scientific discussions about Futalonctosaurus is its exact position in the Titanosaur family tree. Titanosaurs were a very diverse group of sauropods, and their relationships are still not fully understood. Futalonctosaurus appears to belong to a subgroup of titanosaurs that had very wide and robust body structures. This suggests that different titanosaur species developed different body plans depending on their environment and lifestyle. The fossils of Futalonctosaurus were found in a rock formation that preserves evidence of ancient rivers and floodplains. This suggests that the dinosaur may have lived near water sources, where vegetation was more abundant. Such environments would have been ideal for supporting very large herbivores, since plants would grow more densely in these areas. Because of its size, Futalonctosaurus would have had very few natural predators as an adult. Its main defense was likely its sheer mass. Moving or attacking such a large animal would have been extremely difficult for even the largest carnivorous dinosaurs of the time. This allowed Futalonctosaurus to focus most of its energy on feeding and slow movement rather than constant defense. Despite its huge size, Futalonctosaurus, like all dinosaurs, would have grown from eggs. Titanosaurs laid eggs in nests, and fossil evidence from related species shows that they often nested in groups or colonies. The young would hatch at a much smaller size and then grow rapidly over many years. Growth rates in large sauropods were likely very fast compared to many modern reptiles, allowing them to reach massive sizes within a relatively short period of time. The study of Futalonctosaurus also helps scientists understand how such enormous animals could exist on land. Supporting a body weighing tens of tons requires special adaptations in bones, muscles, and circulation systems. The skeleton had to be strong enough to support weight, but also light enough to allow movement. Air-filled spaces inside some bones helped reduce weight without sacrificing strength. The cardiovascular system also had to deliver oxygen efficiently across a very large body. Futalonctosaurus stands as an important example of how far sauropod dinosaurs evolved in terms of size and structure. Its discovery added key information to the understanding of giant titanosaurs in South America, which was one of the most important regions in the world for these massive dinosaurs. Each fossil bone helps scientists learn more about how these animals lived, moved, and survived in ancient ecosystems that existed tens of millions of years ago. Puertosaurus is a giant plant-eating dinosaur that lived during the late part of the Cretaceous world, at a time when South America was already separated from many other landmasses and had its own growing and changing ecosystems filled with large sauropods, theropods, and many smaller animals. The remains of this dinosaur were found in the southern region of Patagonia in Argentina, in rocks that were formed in a time span close to 70 million years ago, give or take a few million years, placing it in the later stages of the Mesozoic era when titanosaurs were among the dominant large land animals. This dinosaur is known mainly from a few large bones rather than a complete skeleton. The most important remains include parts of the vertebrae from the neck, back, and tail region. Even though the fossils are incomplete, the size of these bones is so large that scientists were able to estimate that the full animal must have been one of the largest land animals ever to walk on Earth. The neck vertebrae are especially massive, with extremely wide and tall structures that suggest a very long and heavy neck. These bones are not just large in length, but also thick and strongly built, showing that the animal carried enormous weight in its upper body. The estimated body length of this dinosaur is around 30 meters long, based on comparisons with better-known relatives among titanosaurs and on the proportions of the preserved vertebrae. This length means that from the tip of its head to the end of its tail, the animal stretched across a distance similar to a long row of buses placed end to end. Its height when raising its head would have been very significant, as the neck alone would have extended upward and forward in a sweeping arc supported by strong muscles and ligaments attached to the vertebrae. The weight of this animal is estimated to have been in the range of several tens of tons, possibly around 50 tons or more, depending on how its body proportions are reconstructed. This immense mass required a strong skeletal structure, especially in the legs and vertebral column, to support the body on land. The vertebrae of this dinosaur show a pattern typical of titanosaurs, with large internal cavities and complex air-filled spaces. These air spaces reduced the overall weight of the bones while still keeping them strong enough to support the animal's massive frame. This kind of bone structure is called pneumaticity, and it is especially developed in long-necked sauropods. In this dinosaur, the cervical vertebrae from the neck are particularly striking because they are both extremely wide and tall, suggesting a very thick and muscular neck base. The neural spines, which are the upward projections of the vertebrae, are also very tall, indicating strong attachment points for muscles and ligaments that helped hold the neck in place. The discovery of this dinosaur took place in the late 20th century, when paleontologists working in Patagonia explored sedimentary rock layers that had been exposed by erosion. The fossils were found in the New Cane Basin region, which is well known for producing a large number of titanosaur remains. This area represents an ancient environment that once included rivers, floodplains, and open vegetated landscapes where large herbivores could feed on abundant plant material. The bones of this dinosaur were preserved in sediments that likely accumulated slowly over time, covering the remains and protecting them from complete destruction. Because only partial remains are known, much of what is understood about this dinosaur comes from comparisons with other related titanosaurs. These comparisons help scientists estimate body size, posture, and possible behavior. Titanosaurs as a group are known for their extremely large body sizes, long necks, and relatively small heads compared to their massive bodies. This dinosaur fits into that general pattern, but appears to be among the most extreme in terms of the size of its neck vertebrae and overall skeletal robustness. The neck of this dinosaur is one of its most defining features. It likely allowed the animal to reach high vegetation, as well as cover a wide horizontal feeding range without needing to move its entire body frequently. The structure of the vertebrae suggests that the neck was not held rigid, but had some flexibility, although it was still supported by strong connective tissues that limited excessive bending. The arrangement of joints between the vertebrae allowed for controlled movement, which would have been important for feeding over large areas of plant growth. The back vertebrae also show strong development, indicating a powerful torso that supported both the weight of the neck and the tail. The tail itself, although not fully known, would have been long and muscular, serving as a counterbalance to the neck and possibly helping with stability during movement. The overall structure of the skeleton suggests a carefully balanced body design, where weight distribution was crucial for maintaining stability on land. The limbs of this dinosaur are not fully preserved, but based on related titanosaurs, it likely had 4 very strong pillar-like legs positioned directly under its body. These limbs would have been essential for supporting its great mass. The bones of the legs in similar titanosaurs are typically thick and straight, allowing them to function like strong columns. The joints would have been adapted to handle constant pressure from the animal's weight, while still allowing slow but steady movement across its environment. The skull of this dinosaur is not known, but titanosaurs in general had relatively small heads compared to their body size. Their teeth were usually simple and shaped for stripping leaves rather than chewing tough plant material. Food would have been processed in the digestive system, where large fermentation chambers helped break down plant fibers with the aid of microorganisms. This type of digestion allowed these animals to extract enough nutrients from large amounts of vegetation to sustain their massive bodies. The environment in which this dinosaur lived was likely warm and seasonally variable, with periods of wetter conditions that supported plant growth and drier periods that may have limited vegetation in some regions. The plant life available would have included ferns, conifers, and flowering plants, which were becoming more widespread during the late Cretaceous period. These plants provided the bulk of the diet for large herbivores like this dinosaur. The discovery of this dinosaur added important information to the understanding of titanosaur diversity in South America. Patagonia has produced many giant sauropods, and each new discovery helps scientists refine ideas about how these animals evolved, how large they could grow, and how they were distributed across ancient landscapes. The presence of such a large dinosaur in this region shows that the ecosystems of ancient South America were capable of supporting extremely large herbivores, which required vast amounts of plant material to survive. The classification of this dinosaur places it within Titanosauria, a group of sauropod dinosaurs that became especially dominant during the late stages of the Cretaceous period. Titanosaurs were the last major group of long-necked sauropods before the mass extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous. Within this group, different species show a wide range of sizes and body shapes, but many share common features such as lightweight vertebrae, strong limb bones, and adaptations for large-scale herbivory. The study of this dinosaur also highlights the challenges of working with incomplete fossils. Since only a few bones are available, scientists must carefully reconstruct the rest of the body using knowledge from related species. This process involves measuring bone proportions, analyzing muscle attachment points, and comparing structures across many different fossils. Even small differences in vertebra shape or size can lead to different interpretations of total body length or mass, which is why estimates for this dinosaur vary among researchers. The neural spines of the vertebrae are particularly important for understanding how the neck and back were supported. These spines provide attachment sites for strong ligaments that helped hold the head and neck in position. In such a large animal, maintaining balance would have been critical, especially when moving the neck while feeding. The structure of these bones suggests a system designed to reduce muscular effort by relying heavily on passive support from ligaments and skeletal alignment. The internal structure of the bones, with their hollow spaces, shows a combination of strength and lightness. This adaptation is one of the key reasons sauropods were able to reach such enormous sizes. By reducing bone mass without sacrificing strength, the body could grow larger while still remaining functional for movement and feeding. This system of internal air spaces is also linked to the respiratory system, which likely included air sacs that helped with breathing efficiency. Growth patterns in titanosaurs suggest that individuals like this dinosaur grew rapidly during their early life stages. Juveniles would have been much smaller and more vulnerable, likely staying in groups or in safer areas until they reached larger sizes. As they matured on the Vrejo, their growth rate would have slowed, but they would still have added significant mass over many years before reaching full adult size. The Discovery region in Patagonia continues to be an important source of information about giant sauropods. Each fossil find contributes to a broader picture of how these animals lived, moved, and interacted with their environment. Even with limited remains, this dinosaur stands as an example of the extreme size potential reached by land animals during the Cretaceous period, when ecological conditions allowed for the existence of such massive herbivores supported by abundant plant resources and long periods of evolutionary development across isolated continents. Alamosaurus was a very large plant-eating dinosaur that lived during the late part of the Cretaceous period, around 70 million to 66 million years ago. It belonged to a group of dinosaurs called sauropods, which were known for their long necks, long tails, and heavy bodies supported by thick, pillar-like legs. Alamosaurus is known from fossils found in what is now North America, especially in the southwestern region of the United States, including areas that are today New Mexico, Texas, and Utah. Its remains are not complete skeletons, but the bones that have been found give a strong idea of its shape, size, and way of life. The name Alamosaurus means Alamo lizard. It was named after the Ojo Alamo Formation in New Mexico, where early fossils were discovered. The name was first given in the early 20th century, in the year 1922 by paleontologist Charles W. Gilmore. At that time, only a small amount of material was known, but even those early bones showed that this dinosaur belonged to a group of very large sauropods. Over time, more fossils were found in different locations, helping scientists build a clearer picture of what this animal was like. The body of Alamosaurus was built in a way that supported both height and weight. It had a very long neck made up of many vertebrae, which allowed it to reach vegetation at different heights. The neck bones show that it was strong but not overly rigid, allowing some movement for feeding. The head was small compared to the rest of the body, and it likely contained simple teeth that were shaped for stripping leaves from plants rather than chewing them thoroughly. Like other sauropods, it would have swallowed plant material and relied on its digestive system to break it down over time. The body of Alamosaurus was supported by 4 thick legs that were positioned under its body, giving it a column-like stance. The front legs and back legs were both strong, with the hind limbs often appearing slightly more powerful in structure. The bones of the limbs suggest that the animal carried a massive weight, and the joints were built to handle constant pressure. The feet were wide and likely had large rounded structures that helped distribute weight across the ground. Each step would have required strong muscles and stable joints working together. The tail of Alamosaurus was long and extended far behind the body. It likely helped balance the long neck, keeping the body stable when the animal moved or fed. The tail vertebrae gradually became smaller toward the end, forming a flexible structure. Some sections of the tail may have been more rigid near the base and more flexible toward the tip. The tail also contained strong muscles that helped with movement and posture. The skin of Alamosaurus is not fully known, since skin impressions are extremely rare. However, based on related dinosaurs, it likely had a rough and scaly covering. This skin would have helped protect the body and reduce moisture loss. There is no strong evidence of feathers or similar coverings on this type of dinosaur. Fossils of Alamosaurus include vertebrae, limb bones, and parts of the shoulder and hip. Some of the most important discoveries come from the Javelina Formation in Texas, which dates to the late Cretaceous period. These fossils show that Alamosaurus lived in a time when the environment was changing towards the end of the age of dinosaurs. The rocks where its bones are found suggest floodplains, river channels, and areas with seasonal water flow. These environments supported plant life that could sustain very large herbivores. The size of Alamosaurus is not known from a complete skeleton, but scientists estimate its length to have reached several dozen meters. Some estimates suggest lengths of around 30 meters or more, based on comparisons with related titanosaurs and partial skeletal remains. The weight is also uncertain, but it is believed to have been many tens of tons, based on the thickness of limb bones and the size of vertebrae. These estimates vary because different fossil fragments belong to different individuals, and no single complete skeleton has been found. The bones of Alamosaurus show features that link it to a group of sauropods called titanosaurs. Titanosaurs were a diverse group that lived in many parts of the world during the late Cretaceous period. Alamosaurus shares characteristics such as wide limb bones, specific shapes of vertebrae, and certain features of the pelvis. These traits help scientists place it within this larger group, although its exact relationships to other titanosaurs are still studied and debated. The growth of Alamosaurus likely involved a long juvenile period, followed by rapid growth phases. Like other large sauropods, it would have grown quickly in its early years to reach a size that reduced the risk of predation. Bone structure in some fossils shows growth rings, similar to tree rings, which helps scientists estimate age and growth speed. These rings suggest that individuals could live for many decades, possibly several tens of years or more. Alamosaurus lived in ecosystems that included other dinosaurs, small reptiles, early mammals, and various plant species. The plants available during its time included ferns, conifers, and flowering plants, which were becoming more common during the late Cretaceous period. Its feeding behavior would have involved moving through large areas of vegetation, using its long neck to reach leaves, shoots, and other plant parts. The skull of Alamosaurus is not well preserved in the fossil record, so its exact shape is not fully known. However, based on related sauropods, it likely had a relatively small skull with simple jaw structures. The teeth were likely peg-like or spoon-shaped, adapted for stripping vegetation rather than grinding. It probably did not chew food extensively, but relied on a large digestive system to process plant matter. The vertebrae of Alamosaurus are important in understanding its structure. The neck vertebrae are elongated, allowing flexibility and reach, while the back vertebrae are more robust to support weight. The tail vertebrae show a gradual reduction in size and complexity. Some vertebrae have hollow or air-filled spaces, a feature seen in many sauropods that helped reduce overall weight while maintaining strength. The shoulder girdle and hip bones of Alamosaurus are also significant. The shoulder region supported the front limbs and helped distribute weight, while the hips connected the powerful hind limbs to the spine. The structure of these bones suggests a strong and stable frame capable of supporting a heavy body. Muscle attachment points on these bones indicate large muscle groups that controlled movement and posture. Alamosaurus fossils have been found in layers of rock that indicate it lived near the end of the Cretaceous period, close to the time when non-avian dinosaurs became extinct around 66 million years ago. This places it among the last surviving groups of long-necked sauropods in North America. The presence of its fossils in multiple formations suggests it was spread across a wide region during its time. The environment where Alamosaurus lived included river systems that changed course over time, creating floodplains where sediment accumulated. These floodplains supported plant growth and provided water sources. Seasonal changes likely affected the availability of vegetation and water, influencing the movement and behavior of large herbivores like Alamosaurus. The discovery of Alamosaurus has helped scientists understand the distribution of titanosaurs in North America during the late Cretaceous period. Its fossils provide evidence that large sauropods still existed on the continent close to the end of the dinosaur age, even though earlier periods had seen different groups of sauropods dominate the landscape. Alamosaurus remains continue to be studied through new fossil discoveries and improved analysis methods. Each new bone fragment adds more detail to the understanding of its anatomy, growth, and environment. The study of its vertebrae, limb bones, and other remains helps build a clearer image of its physical structure and way of life, during a time when Earth's ecosystems were undergoing major changes near the end of the Mesozoic era. Notocolossus was one of the most massive land animals ever discovered, belonging to a group of long-necked, plant-eating dinosaurs called titanosaurs. These dinosaurs were part of the larger sauropod family, which also includes some of the biggest animals that ever walked on Earth. Notocolossus lived during the late Cretaceous period in what is now South America, in the region that is now Argentina. At that time, the environment was very different from today, with wide river systems, floodplains, and large areas of vegetation that could support huge herbivores. The name Notocolossus means something like a southern giant, which reflects both its enormous size and the southern part of the world where it was found. Its fossils were discovered in Argentina in the Neuquén Basin, a region famous for producing many important dinosaur discoveries. The rocks where it was found belong to a geological unit known as the Plotia Formation, which dates back to the late Cretaceous period. This means Notocolossus lived roughly around 90 million years ago, during a time when dinosaurs still dominated land ecosystems across most of the planet. The discovery and scientific description of Notocolossus were formally published in the year 2016 by a team of Argentine paleontologists, led by Bernardo González Giga. The fossils were fragmentary, meaning that only parts of the skeleton were recovered rather than a complete skeleton. Even so, the remains were enough to show that this animal was among the largest titanosaurs ever identified. The key bones found included parts of the limbs, especially a very large humerus, upper arm bone, and a massive femur, thigh bone, which helped scientists estimate its overall size and body structure. The humerus of Notocolossus is especially important because it is one of the largest known upper arm bones from any land animal. It was extremely thick and strong, built to support an enormous amount of weight. The femur was also very large and robust, indicating that Notocolossus had to support a heavy body as it moved slowly across its environment. These bones show that its limbs were built like strong pillars, designed to carry a massive torso and long neck. Based on comparisons with other titanosaurs, scientists estimate that Notocolossus may have reached a length of about 28 to 30 meters. Some estimates suggest it could have been even slightly longer, depending on how its missing body parts are reconstructed. In terms of weight, it likely ranged between roughly 40 to 60 metric tons, although exact numbers are uncertain because the fossil remains are incomplete. Even with this uncertainty, it clearly ranks among the largest land animals ever discovered. The body of Notocolossus would have been shaped like that of other titanosaurs, with a very long neck that allowed it to reach vegetation high above the ground or spread across wide areas without moving its massive body too much. Its tail would have been long and heavy, possibly used for balance as it walked. Its torso was wide and deep, housing a very large digestive system needed to process large amounts of plant material every day. Like other sauropods, Notocolossus was a herbivore, meaning it ate plants. It likely fed on a variety of vegetation, including ferns, conifers, and flowering plants that were becoming more common during the late Cretaceous period. Because of its enormous size, it would have needed to consume vast quantities of plant material daily to sustain its energy needs. Its long neck would have allowed it to reach food sources without needing to move its entire body frequently, making feeding more efficient in large areas. The environment where Notocolossus lived was part of a warm climate zone. Rivers and seasonal floods shaped the landscape, creating fertile plains where plants could grow in abundance. These environments were also home to many other dinosaurs, including smaller herbivores and large predators. Notocolossus, due to its enormous size, would have been one of the dominant animals in its ecosystem, with few predators capable of threatening fully grown adults. Even though Notocolossus was massive, it likely moved in a slow and steady manner. Its limbs were not built for speed but for support and stability. Each step would have required powerful muscle movement, and its weight would have been distributed across its thick legs. Despite its size, it was probably capable of moving when necessary, such as migrating to new feeding grounds or avoiding danger when young or vulnerable. The structure of its bones also shows interesting adaptations for supporting extreme weight. The limb bones were thick and strong with internal structures that helped balance strength and lightness. Like other titanosaurs, Notocolossus likely had air-filled spaces within parts of its skeleton, which helped reduce overall weight without sacrificing strength. This adaptation is seen in many large sauropods and is one of the reasons they were able to grow to such enormous sizes. One of the most fascinating aspects of Notocolossus is how it fits into the broader story of titanosaur evolution. Titanosaurs were among the last surviving groups of sauropods before the mass extinction event at the end of the Cretaceous period. Over time, some titanosaurs evolved extremely large body sizes, and Notocolossus represents one of the extreme examples of this trend. Its discovery helped scientists better understand how far sauropod size could go and how these animals adapted to support such enormous bodies. The fossil evidence also suggests that Notocolossus may have had a relatively simple body plan compared to some other dinosaur groups. Its head was likely small in proportion to its body, with peg-like teeth suited for stripping leaves from plants rather than chewing tough material. After swallowing, plant material would have been processed in a very large digestive system, possibly aided by stones swallowed to help grind food, a behavior seen in some modern animals and inferred in some dinosaurs. Because only partial remains have been found, there is still uncertainty about many details of Notocolossus. Scientists continue to compare it with related titanosaurs such as Argentinosaurus and Patagotiton to refine estimates of its size and biology. Each new discovery in the region has the potential to change how researchers understand Notocolossus and its place among giant dinosaurs. Despite the incomplete nature of its fossils, Notocolossus has become an important reference point in discussions about the largest dinosaurs ever known. Its massive limb bones alone provide strong evidence that it was built to support an immense body. Even without a full skeleton, these bones are enough to place it among the giants of prehistoric life. The discovery of Notocolossus also highlights the importance of South America, especially Argentina, in understanding dinosaur evolution. Many of the largest known sauropods have been found in this region, suggesting that it was a key area for the development of gigantic plant-eating dinosaurs during the late Cretaceous period. The rich fossil record in this region continues to provide new insights into how these enormous animals lived and evolved. In its ecosystem, Notocolossus would have played a major role in shaping vegetation patterns. By feeding on large amounts of plant material, it would have influenced which plants thrived and how forests and plant communities were structured. Its movement across landscapes would also have helped disperse plant seeds and shape the environment in subtle but important ways. Even though Notocolossus is long extinct, its fossils continue to tell a story about life on Earth millions of years ago. The enormous size of its bones reminds scientists of the limits of biological growth and how evolution can produce creatures of extraordinary scale under the right environmental conditions. Its discovery adds another piece to the complex puzzle of dinosaur diversity during the late Cretaceous period in South America. Notocolossus remains a symbol of the giant titanosaurs that once roamed the ancient landscapes of Argentina, showing how diverse and extreme dinosaur life could become before the end of their long reign on Earth. Barosaurus was a very large plant-eating dinosaur that lived a very long time ago during the late Jurassic period, around 150 million years ago. It belonged to a group of dinosaurs called sauropods, which were known for their extremely long necks, long tails, thick legs like pillars, and massive bodies. Barosaurus is especially famous because of its very long neck, which helped it reach plants that other animals could not easily eat. The name Barosaurus means heavy lizard, and this name reflects its huge size and strong body. Even though it was very large, its body was built in a way that helped it stay somewhat light for its size. Its bones were not solid like stone, but filled with air spaces, which made them lighter, while still strong enough to support its weight. Barosaurus lived in what is now North America, especially in places that are today the western United States. At that time, the environment was very different. It was not a dry desert like some parts of the region are today. Instead, it had river systems, floodplains, forests, and open areas where many plant-eating dinosaurs could feed. Barosaurus shared its world with many other dinosaurs, including other long-necked sauropods, as well as large meat-eating dinosaurs that could have posed a danger to young or weak individuals. Most of what scientists know about Barosaurus comes from fossils found in rock formations known as the Morrison Formation. These rocks have preserved many important dinosaur fossils and have helped scientists understand the ecosystems of late Jurassic North America. The fossils of Barosaurus are not complete skeletons, but they are enough to give a good idea of its shape, size, and way of life. Barosaurus was one of the longest dinosaurs known. Its body length is usually estimated to be around 20 to 26 meters, and in some studies it may have been even longer, depending on how the missing parts of the skeleton are reconstructed. To imagine this length, it would be similar to several large buses placed one after another. Its weight is estimated to have been around 15 to 20 tons, though some estimates vary. Even at this weight, it was still much lighter than some other giant sauropods because of its hollow bones and efficient body structure. The most striking feature of Barosaurus was its neck. The neck was extremely long and contained many elongated vertebrae. These bones were shaped in a way that allowed flexibility, while still supporting the great length. The neck may have been used to reach high vegetation in trees or to sweep across wide areas of plants without needing to move the entire body very often. This would have helped it save energy while feeding. There has been discussion among scientists about how exactly Barosaurus held its neck. Some scientists believe it could raise its neck quite high, allowing it to feed from tall trees. Others suggest that it may have mostly kept its neck more horizontal, using it to reach food over a wide ground area. It is possible that it could do both depending on its needs and behavior. The structure of its neck suggests that it was flexible but also carefully balanced. The tail of Barosaurus was also very long and likely very important. It may have been used for balance while the animal moved or fed. Some scientists also think that the tail could have been used for defense. Like other diplodocid sauropods, Barosaurus may have been able to move its tail quickly, possibly producing loud cracking sounds or using it to strike at predators. However, this is still a topic of study and not fully confirmed. Barosaurus walked on 4 strong legs. The front legs were slightly shorter than the hind legs, which gave its body a gently sloping shape from the hips down toward the head. Its feet were large and supported its heavy body. The bones of the legs were thick and strong, built to carry weight over long distances. Despite its size, Barosaurus was likely capable of moving steadily across its environment in search of food. Its head was relatively small compared to its body. It had simple teeth that were shaped like pencils or pegs. These teeth were not used for chewing tough plants. Instead, Barosaurus likely used its teeth to strip leaves from branches. After swallowing plant material, it would rely on a large digestive system to break down the food inside its body. Like many other large herbivorous dinosaurs, it probably swallowed stones called gastroliths, which may have helped grind plant material in the stomach, although this is still debated. Barosaurus belonged to a family of dinosaurs called diplodocids. This group also includes dinosaurs like Diplodocus and Apatosaurus. These animals shared similar body shapes, especially their long necks and tails. However, Barosaurus is known for having one of the longest necks among them. Compared to Diplodocus, Barosaurus had fewer but longer neck vertebrae, which contributed to its extreme neck length. The discovery of Barosaurus happened in the late 19th century. It was first described by the American paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh in the year 1890. Marsh was one of the leading scientists during a time known as the Bone Wars, a period of intense fossil competition in North America. During this time, many new dinosaur species were discovered and named, including Barosaurus. The fossils of Barosaurus were not complete when they were first found, which made reconstruction difficult. Over time, more fossils were discovered, allowing scientists to improve their understanding of its body structure. Even today, some parts of its skeleton remain uncertain, and scientists continue to refine their ideas about its exact proportions and posture. In addition to fossils found in North America, similar sauropod fossils were discovered in Africa, especially in the Tendaguru Formation in what is now Tanzania. At first, some of these African fossils were also classified as Barosaurus. One species was named Barosaurus africanus. However, later studies showed that these African fossils were different enough to be placed in a separate genus, called Torniaria. This shows how scientific understanding can change as new information becomes available. Barosaurus lived in a world filled with large plants and active ecosystems. The environment of the late Jurassic period was warm, and plant life was abundant. There were conifers, ferns, cycads, and other ancient plant groups that formed the main food sources for large herbivores like Barosaurus. Rivers and floodplains would have provided rich vegetation, especially in areas where water and nutrients were more available. Because of its large size, Barosaurus likely had few natural predators once it reached full adulthood. However, young Barosaurus individuals would have been more vulnerable. Large meat-eating dinosaurs of the time may have hunted or scavenged young or weak sauropods. Living in groups may have offered some protection, although evidence for group behavior in Barosaurus is not fully clear. The growth of Barosaurus would have been very important for its survival. Like many dinosaurs, it likely grew quickly when young. Rapid growth would have helped it reach a size where it was less vulnerable to predators. Its bones show signs of fast growth in related species, suggesting that Barosaurus may have shared this trait. The body structure of Barosaurus shows many adaptations for supporting its extreme size. Its vertebrae were lightened with air spaces, and its limbs were strong and column-like. The joints in its legs and spine were designed to support steady movement rather than fast running. It was not a fast animal, but it did not need to be. Its size provided protection, and its feeding strategy allowed it to survive without needing quick movements. Scientists continue to study Barosaurus because it helps them understand how extremely large land animals could exist and function. Its anatomy gives clues about balance, feeding behavior, and movement in giant sauropods. It also helps scientists compare different long-necked dinosaurs to understand how they evolved, different body shapes, and strategies for survival. Barosaurus remains one of the most impressive dinosaurs known from the Jurassic period. Even though its fossils are incomplete, the parts that have been found show a remarkable animal with a long neck, a powerful body, and a lifestyle adapted to feeding on large amounts of vegetation. Its remains continue to be studied and displayed in museums where they help people understand the scale and diversity of prehistoric life. Brachiosaurus was one of the most famous giant dinosaurs that lived a very long time ago during the late Jurassic period, when the world looked very different from today. At that time, much of the land was covered with warm forests, open river plains, and wide green landscapes where huge plant-eating dinosaurs moved slowly in search of food. This dinosaur belonged to a group called sauropods, which were known for their very long necks, long tails, and massive bodies. What made Brachiosaurus especially different from many other long-necked dinosaurs was the way its body was built. Its front legs were longer than its back legs, which gave its body a sloping shape, almost like a natural ramp rising toward its head and neck. Because of this structure, it could reach very high into tall trees that other herbivores could not easily feed from. Brachiosaurus lived roughly 150 million years ago in a time when the Earth's climate was generally warmer and there were no ice caps at the poles. The areas where its fossils have been found, especially in what is now North America, were once part of a large environment filled with rivers, floodplains, and forests rich in conifers, cycads, and ferns. These plants formed the main food source for this giant dinosaur. Its long neck allowed it to browse across a wide vertical range without needing to move its heavy body too much. Instead of traveling long distances for food, it could stay in one area and feed on leaves from different heights. The size of Brachiosaurus was truly enormous. It could grow to a length of about 20 meters or a little more, and its height when standing with its neck raised could reach around 12 to 16 meters. Some estimates suggest it may have weighed many tens of tons, possibly similar to several large modern elephants, combined many times over. Its bones were strong but also relatively light for its size, with hollow spaces inside that helped reduce weight while still supporting its massive body. Even with these adaptations, moving such a huge body required a lot of energy, and it likely spent most of its time feeding slowly and steadily. Its neck was one of its most important features. It was extremely long and contained many large vertebrae that were shaped to support both flexibility and strength. Unlike some other long-necked dinosaurs that held their necks more horizontally, Brachiosaurus is often thought to have held its neck more upright. This posture would have allowed it to reach vegetation at heights that very few other animals of its time could access. However, it is also possible that it moved its neck in different positions depending on what it was feeding on, rather than keeping it fixed in one direction. The head of Brachiosaurus was relatively small compared to its body. It had spoon-shaped teeth that were not designed for chewing tough plants, but for stripping leaves from branches. After pulling leaves into its mouth, it likely swallowed them without much chewing. Like many other sauropods, it probably relied on a very large digestive system to break down plant material over a long period of time. This slow digestion would have helped it extract enough nutrients from the large amount of vegetation it consumed every day. Its tail was long and powerful, balancing out the weight of its neck and body. The tail may also have been used for communication or defense against predators. Although Brachiosaurus was so large that adult individuals had few natural enemies, younger or weaker individuals may still have been vulnerable to large predatory dinosaurs of the same period. Its size alone, however, was one of its main forms of protection, as few predators would have been able to bring down a fully grown individual. The legs of Brachiosaurus were thick and strong like pillars. The front legs being longer than the back legs gave it a unique stance compared to many other sauropods. This posture raised its shoulders higher than its hips, contributing to its ability to reach tall vegetation. The bones in its legs had to support enormous weight, and they were structured in a way that spread the load efficiently. Its feet were also wide and strong, helping to support its heavy body on soft ground. Brachiosaurus likely moved slowly, as most giant animals do today. Its movement would not have been fast, but its large stride still allowed it to cover ground when needed. It probably travelled in search of food and water, although it may have also stayed in certain areas for long periods if resources were abundant. Herd behaviour is still debated, but some scientists believe it may have lived in small groups or loose associations, especially when young individuals needed protection. The environment it lived in was filled with other dinosaurs, including different types of sauropods, small herbivores, and large carnivorous dinosaurs. The ecosystem was rich and competitive, with many species sharing the same landscapes. Rivers and floodplains played an important role in shaping the environment, constantly changing the availability of plants and creating new feeding areas over time. Fossils of Brachiosaurus were first discovered in North America in the late 19th century. These discoveries helped scientists understand more about how massive sauropod dinosaurs could grow and survive. Since then, Brachiosaurus has become one of the most well-known dinosaurs in science and popular culture, often shown as a symbol of giant, long-necked dinosaurs. However, complete skeletons are rare, and much of what is known about it comes from partial remains combined with comparisons to similar dinosaurs. Even with incomplete fossils, scientists have been able to build a fairly detailed picture of its body structure and lifestyle. Studies of its bones show that it had adaptations for supporting great weight and reaching high vegetation. Its respiratory system was likely very efficient, possibly similar in some ways to that of modern birds, helping it supply oxygen to its large body. Brachiosaurus remains one of the most remarkable examples of giant land animals that ever lived. Its combination of size, unusual body shape, and feeding strategy shows how diverse and specialized dinosaurs became during the Jurassic period. It stands as a clear example of how life on Earth once reached extreme forms in size and adaptation, shaped by long periods of evolution and changing environments over many millions of years. Supersaurus was one of the longest and most massive dinosaurs that ever walked on land, and it lived during a time when huge plant-eating dinosaurs ruled the Earth. Its name means super lizard, and this name fits it very well because of its enormous size and long body. It belonged to a group of dinosaurs called sauropods, which were known for their very long necks, long tails, and heavy bodies supported by thick, pillar-like legs. Supersaurus was part of a more specific family of sauropods known as diplodocids, which also included other long dinosaurs like Diplodocus and Apatosaurus. Supersaurus lived during the late Jurassic period, a time that took place about 150 million years ago. At that time, the world looked very different from today. There were no flowering plants, no grasslands, and no birds as we know them. Instead, forests were filled with conifers, ferns, and other ancient plants. These plants formed the main food source for giant herbivores, like Supersaurus. What makes Supersaurus especially interesting is its extreme length. Scientists believe it could grow to lengths of around 40 meters or even more, which is roughly the length of several large buses placed end to end. Even though its body was incredibly long, it was not especially heavy, compared to some other giant dinosaurs like Titanosaurs. Its body was relatively light for its size because many of its bones had air-filled spaces inside them, which made it easier to support such a long frame without becoming too heavy to move. The neck of Supersaurus was one of its most striking features. It was extremely long and flexible, allowing the dinosaur to reach high vegetation as well as plants closer to the ground. This gave it access to a wide feeding range without needing to move its body too much. Instead of lifting its entire massive body, it could simply move its long neck like a giant feeding arm. Its head was small compared to its body, with simple teeth that were shaped like pegs. These teeth were not designed for chewing, but for stripping leaves off branches. Supersaurus would swallow plant material quickly and rely on its large digestive system to break it down over time. The tail of Supersaurus was also extremely long and whip-like. It likely used its tail for balance, helping it support its long neck. Some scientists also think the tail might have been used for communication or even defense. A fast swing of such a long tail could create a loud cracking sound, or even be used to scare off predators. Although Supersaurus was not heavily armored or equipped with sharp claws or teeth for fighting, its massive size alone would have been a strong defense against most predators of its time. Its legs were thick and strong, positioned directly under its body like the pillars of a building. This upright leg structure helped support its enormous weight. The front legs were especially long, which is one reason why Supersaurus may have had a slightly sloping back, with its body higher at the front than at the hips. This body shape helped balance its long neck and allowed it to reach higher vegetation more easily. Supersaurus lived in what is now North America, especially in regions that were once floodplains, filled with rivers, lakes, and forests. These environments provided plenty of plant life for such a large herbivore. The landscape would have been warm and seasonal, with wet and dry periods that influenced plant growth. Supersaurus likely moved slowly through these environments, spending much of its time eating to sustain its massive body. Even though Supersaurus was enormous, it likely did not live alone all the time. Some scientists believe it may have moved in small groups or loose herds, especially during migration between feeding areas. Moving in groups could have provided some protection for younger or weaker individuals, although even large predators of the time would have had difficulty attacking a fully grown Supersaurus. The discovery of Supersaurus fossils has helped scientists better understand how extremely large dinosaurs evolved and lived. The first fossils were found in the western United States, and since then more remains have been discovered that helped confirm its identity and size. However, Supersaurus is not known from a complete skeleton, which means scientists have had to carefully compare its bones with those of similar dinosaurs to estimate its full shape and length. This is why its exact size is still debated, but there is agreement that it was among the longest dinosaurs ever discovered. One of the most important parts of Supersaurus fossils is its neck vertebrae, which are very elongated compared to those of many other dinosaurs. These bones show how its neck could extend to great lengths while still remaining relatively light. The structure of these bones also shows that Supersaurus had air sacs inside them, similar to modern birds. These air sacs reduced weight and may also have helped with breathing efficiency, allowing oxygen to flow through its large body more effectively. Supersaurus probably spent most of its day eating, as animals of its size needed a huge amount of plant material to survive. It would have stripped leaves from tall trees, ferns and other vegetation, constantly moving its neck to reach new food sources. Because of its size, it likely did not need to worry about many predators once it reached adulthood. However, young Supersaurus individuals would have been more vulnerable and may have stayed closer to adults for protection. The growth of Supersaurus from a hatchling to a full-grown giant would have taken many years. Like other sauropods, it likely grew quickly in its early years, taking advantage of abundant food and relatively few threats. As it grew larger, its growth rate may have slowed, but it still continued to increase in size over a long period until it reached its full massive length. Supersaurus also helps scientists understand the limits of how large land animals can become. Its body shows how evolution can produce extremely long and lightweight skeletons that still remain strong enough to support enormous size. By studying Supersaurus, researchers learn about bone structure, growth patterns, and how such huge creatures manage to survive in prehistoric ecosystems. Despite its impressive size, Supersaurus was not the only giant sauropod of its time. It lived alongside other large plant-eating dinosaurs, and they all shared similar environments, but may have eaten different types of plants or fed at different heights to reduce competition. This separation of feeding habits allowed multiple giant herbivores to exist in the same regions without directly competing too much for food. The environment of Supersaurus was filled with other dinosaurs, including large predators that hunted smaller or weaker animals. While Supersaurus adults were mostly safe due to their size, the presence of these predators shaped their behavior and possibly influenced how they moved and fed. Over time, changes in climate and environment contributed to the disappearance of Supersaurus and many other Jurassic dinosaurs. As the Earth continued to change, new groups of dinosaurs evolved and others slowly died out. Supersaurus eventually became part of the fossil record, preserved in rock layers that much later allowed scientists to discover its existence and reconstruct its life. Supersaurus remains an important example of how incredibly large dinosaurs could grow during the age of the giants. Turriosaurus was a very large plant-eating dinosaur that lived a very long time ago during the late part of the Jurassic period. This was a time when the Earth looked very different from today, with warm climates, wide forests, and many kinds of giant dinosaurs living across different land areas. Turriosaurus is especially important because it shows that huge long-necked dinosaurs were not only found in places like South America or Africa, but also in what is now Europe. Its remains were discovered in modern-day Spain, and this discovery changed what scientists understood about how giant dinosaurs were spread across the ancient world. The fossils of Turriosaurus were found in a region of northeastern Spain in an area known for many dinosaur remains. The rocks where it was discovered belong to layers that formed during the late Jurassic time, which was around 150 million years ago. The dinosaur itself was named and scientifically described in the early 21st century, after researchers carefully studied its bones. Even though the fossils were not complete, they included important parts such as bones from the limbs, parts of the skull, and pieces of the backbone. These remains were enough for scientists to realize that they had found a new and very large type of sauropod dinosaur, which is the group of long-necked, long-tailed, plant-eating dinosaurs. Turriosaurus belong to a group of dinosaurs that are often described as primitive or early types of very large sauropods. It did not fit perfectly into the more well-known sauropod families like the diplodocids or titanosaurs. Instead, it seems to belong to a separate line of evolution that developed its own features over time. One of the most interesting things about it is its size. Turriosaurus is considered one of the largest dinosaurs ever found in Europe. Estimates based on its bones suggest that it could have reached lengths of about 30 to nearly 40 meters, which is roughly the length of several large buses placed end to end. Its weight may have been around 40 tons or more, similar to the weight of several large trucks combined. The body of Turriosaurus was built for supporting a massive frame. Like other sauropods, it walked on 4 thick, pillar-like legs that were strong enough to carry its heavy body. Its neck was very long, allowing it to reach high vegetation, while its tail was also long and likely helped with balance. The bones of its limbs were especially thick and strong compared to some other long-necked dinosaurs, which suggests that it needed extra support for its great weight. Even though only partial skeletons have been found, the structure of these bones gives a clear idea of how powerful and heavy this animal must have been. The environment where Turriosaurus lived was likely warm and filled with plant life. During the late Jurassic period, the area that is now Spain was part of a landscape that included rivers, floodplains, and forests. These environments would have provided plenty of food for a giant herbivore like Turriosaurus. Its diet probably consisted of ferns, cycads, conifers, and other soft or leafy plants that grew in abundance during that time. Because of its large size, it would have needed to eat a huge amount of plant material each day to maintain its energy and body growth. The discovery of Turriosaurus was very important for paleontology, the study of ancient life. It was found by a team of researchers working in Spain, and the fossils were carefully studied and compared with other known dinosaurs. When scientists realized that the bones did not match any previously known species, they concluded that it represented a new genus and species. This was a major finding because it added a new branch to the family tree of sauropod dinosaurs. It also showed that Europe, during the Jurassic period, had its own unique giant dinosaurs that were not always closely related to those found on other continents. One of the key features that helped identify Turriosaurus as a distinct dinosaur was the shape and structure of its teeth and bones. Its teeth were shaped in a way that suggests it was adapted for stripping plant material, rather than chewing it thoroughly. Like other sauropods, it likely swallowed food in large amounts and relied on a very large digestive system to process it. The bones of its limbs and vertebrae also had unique patterns that separated it from other similar dinosaurs. These differences helped scientists place it into its own group within the wider sauropod family tree. The discovery site in Spain has provided other important fossils as well, showing that Turriosaurus was part of a diverse ecosystem. Other dinosaurs, smaller reptiles, and ancient animals also lived in the same region. This suggests that the environment was rich and supported many forms of life. Turriosaurus, being one of the largest animals in that ecosystem, would have played an important role in shaping the vegetation and landscape simply by feeding and moving through its environment. Because Turriosaurus is known from incomplete fossils, scientists still continue to study and refine their understanding of it. Each new bone or fragment discovered can help improve estimates of its size, shape, and lifestyle. Over time, these findings help build a clearer picture of what this giant dinosaur was like. Even with limited remains, it is clear that it was one of the most impressive land animals of its time. The name Turriosaurus comes from the region where it was found, combined with a word meaning lizard. This naming reflects a common tradition in paleontology, where new dinosaurs are often named after the place of discovery, along with a word describing their nature. The full scientific naming and description were published in the early 2000s, marking its official entry into scientific records. Living in the late Jurassic world, Turriosaurus would have shared its environment with many other long-necked dinosaurs, as well as predators and smaller plant-eating animals. The ecosystem was dynamic with competition for food and space. However, the sheer size of Turriosaurus likely protected it from most predators once it reached adulthood. Its massive body would have made it one of the dominant herbivores of its time. The growth of Turriosaurus from a young dinosaur to a full-grown adult would have taken many years. Like other sauropods, it likely grew rapidly when young to reach a size that offered protection. Its bones suggest that it followed a growth pattern where it increased steadily in size over time, eventually reaching its enormous adult form. This long growth process required a constant supply of food and a stable environment where it could survive and develop. The importance of Turriosaurus also lies in what it tells scientists about dinosaur evolution in Europe. During the Jurassic period, Europe was not a single large landmass like it is today. Instead, it was made up of islands and changing land areas. The presence of such a large dinosaur in this region suggests that at times there were land connections or large enough habitats to support giant animals. This helps scientists understand how dinosaurs moved and evolved across ancient Earth. Even though Turriosaurus is not as widely known as some other giant dinosaurs, it remains a key example of how diverse and widespread sauropods were. Its discovery added new information about the size limits that land animals could reach, and showed that Europe had its own giants long before the famous titanosaurs of later periods. Each fossil connected to this dinosaur continues to provide more detail about its life, environment, and role in prehistoric ecosystems.